right, well, let's get started. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another webinar uh, from Facts ICG. I'm Eric, and am happy to present and introduce today's webinar, Budgeting Made Easy. Our guest today is Nathaniel Pacina. He's a solutions advisor at ClearGov, focusing on helping local governments in Florida improve their budgeting process. Prior to joining ClearGov, Nathaniel was a public information specialist for Ellis County, Texas, where he helped build and present the county's annual budget. So he does have local government experience. He has a bachelor's degree in business marketing from SAGU and is a FEMA certified public information officer. We thought this webinar would be good. We're right in the middle of budgeting season. And so they are a business solutions partner with FAC. And so with that, Nathaniel, I'm going to turn it over to you and let's talk about what ClearGov does for local governments.
Absolutely. I appreciate the introduction there, Eric, and I appreciate everyone for joining the webinar here today. As Eric talked about, we're going to be discussing Budgeting Made Easy, top tips for a hassle-free budget process. As Eric mentioned, I'm Nathaniel Pacina. I'm a solutions advisor here at ClearGov. And also, as he mentioned, I personally come from county government, but a little bit of ways from everyone here today on the call. I actually come from county government in Texas. So a little bit of distance from y'all, but was a part of the team for several years. And we were actually looking at ways to really simplify our process. Right? We had a very manual based process, and we were looking for ways to streamline it, make it a lot more simplified. It's when I ran into ClearGov, liked the team so much and everything that they were doing that I decided to join them. And so now I have the privilege and the honor of working with counties all across the state of Florida. So appreciate you for joining the call here today. Just to provide you an overview of what we will be discussing here today. First, I'm just going to provide a high level, just 1 minute overview of what it is that ClearGov does, why we exist, why is there a new partnership with FAC here in general. From there, we're going to set the stage for the conversation, and we're going to discuss just commonly faced problems that counties all across the state of Florida are really facing as it relates to producing their budget on a year-to-year basis. And then I'm going to provide an overview and breakdown of the top tips that we'll be discussing here today. And then at the end of our time, I absolutely want to leave some time for questions, to hear from you, any feedback that you might have. Throughout our time here today, you can also ask questions in the chat. So if there's really something urgent that you don't want to forget, feel free to just chat it. I do have a colleague here on the call who will help address those questions, but anything we can't get to on the call today as it relates to questions, we'll be more than happy to circle back around after the webinar here. But let's get started and really start to dive into it. Just like I just explained my story, like all things, everyone has a story, including ClearGov. Ours really started at ClearGov in 2015 in a little town in Massachusetts when a guy named Chris actually walked into his town's budget meeting and found it, frankly, a little difficult to follow. He left the meeting thinking, okay, why is it so complicated to understand? People should be able to come into these meetings, make it easy to understand. And that's actually where he left the meeting that day, got in his car and drove off thinking, okay, somebody should really do something about this. Lo and behold, Chris is actually the CEO here of ClearGov, and that's when the vision of ClearGov was really born that day. And then all these years later, ClearGov is actually the #1 budget resource provider across the entire United States. A lot of us that work here at ClearGov come directly from local government, myself included, as you just heard, all working to make budgeting easier, increase transparency, and increase efficiency. And that's really who we are. That's our mission. We're all about creating easy-to-use software to help governments budget and even plan better. So much so that I actually hang my hat on with pride about this. We actually went through a vetting process with the National Association of Counties, and we were actually endorsed as the go-to budget resource provider for county governments that we serve. And even now, definitely excited about our more local partnership as a FAC business solutions partner with the organization. And we're very appreciative of them for hosting us on this webinar here today. But to really set the stage for the conversation that we're about to get into, I just wanted to provide some kind of input that I've gathered over my time of working in government, but also working with several counties all across the state here. Time and time again, we're really hearing similar issues and similar problems arise across various counties as it relates to the budget process. As you're familiar with, you're tasked with creating the different components of your budget, whether it be the operating side, capital, personnel, collaborating internally. A lot of counties have different processes put in place, different tools or resources to help them along the way. But then that's not all, right? You're then tasked with really driving and telling your financial story in a way that would even make sense to your community. Then you have to format all that, put it on your website, create that PDF document. Then you're not even talking about any optimization. You're not even talking about, from that point, winning any type of award for being a thought leader or anything like that. And that's where a ton of folks really say, okay, what we're doing today is very cumbersome, very time consuming. Modernization really is a must in our day and age. So that's what we're going to be discussing here today. We're going to be breaking down the top tips for a hassle-free budgeting process. Tip number one, we're going to start with that vision and a plan. We're going to discuss how this really sets the stage for where you're going. While this is not the intent always, but from speaking with several county governments here in Florida, it's almost as if governments can often feel like they're having to be more reactive as opposed to being proactive as a county. So we're going to discuss that. Then we're going to go into making collaboration easy. It's not just about making your internal department processes a little bit more simplified, but how are you collaborating across your internal teams, your departments? Is the target really wide enough for your internal stakeholders to be able to meet your expectations and provide you with what you need to effectively do your job at the end of the day? From there, we're going to make scenario planning easy. While this is a function of your day-to-day budget planning process, even the logistics of how this gets done really tends to drag a lot of teams down with time-consuming processes. So the question is, you have to ask yourself, is this as efficient as it could be? Where are there areas for improvement? And that's going to lead us into presenting to engage. And with presenting to engage, this right here is what I believe is really the foundation of which trust is built upon with your county residents that you serve. More and more governments are going above and beyond than just producing a 500-page budget presentation when it's all said and done at the end of the day, really to the point where if your county is not currently doing that, you're somewhat being left behind. So we're going to touch on this as really being able to easily present and publish your hard work that you're working on, since this is a major factor in the process. And then we'll wrap it up here with leveraging technology. Just like anything else in life, technology advances, processes get more efficient. A lot of counties across the state are working to make their life easier by leveraging technology to save time. So we'll discuss some of that here today. But as we get into it, want to start with talking with creating a vision and a plan. Now, I'm not going to talk about how to create a strategic plan or anything like that. There are plenty of other webinars on that. But at a very high level, we found that it's critical to be proactive as a county government, to show you have a vision of where you're going, how you want to build out your budget, why are you building it out in that way. Really communicating what those priorities are for the county are definitely critical. On a more personal note here, just to give you a peek behind the curtain, I actually went on my county's website to review what their plan for their budget is, and they had nothing there. I don't know what that's supposed to communicate to me, but maybe they don't have a plan, or maybe they do have a plan, but they haven't really gotten around to sharing it. But what is the vision for my community? Not only do I want to know as a resident, but as a team internally, as a staff. This really forms the foundation of your budget. Instead of departments working separately, we can actually bring cohesiveness across the team when we all understand where we're trying to go. Another thing is while having a vision and a plan is critical, it really dies if it ends there. Don't just share a plan, right? We want to share progress, how we're changing over time, have key metrics in which you can hold your team accountable to, and be proactive in displaying the progress your budget is making across the county here. This will even further reduce public comments and distrust on, where the dollar is going. But it's also going to bring that team together all around a common vision, a common goal. So connect your plan to your budget, understand what areas have the most funding and how to better project the need for dollars as your county grows. Now, I want to take a moment here just to share an example of what some communities are doing, just to add some context of what we mean behind this. ClearGov, last year, we actually developed a solution called Clear Plans that we've worked with the National Association of Counties on to really develop a tool to where counties can come in, share their vision, share their plan, and also share the progress of what they're doing overall. So I just want to show you one community that we're working with on our Clear Plans application. Several counties have different tools and resources to do this as well. But just to show you the goal behind this, right? We want to have one place to where you can create your vision, you can track that vision internally and the progress of that, as well as display it and really drive your narrative to your community. Clear Plans and all, I always like to say it's like a coloring book to where you're able to break down your vision, your mission for your plan, any values or goals that you're really working towards. And then you're able to really simplify it for your community, for your team to understand what it is you're really looking for throughout the budget process. In here, you can actually break down key focus areas of your plan. You're able to track the overall progress, different goals, budget allocations. But what's nice is as you start breaking this down, you're able to hold your team accountable with the progress they're making throughout the budget process, as well as residents are able to quickly see everything that you're accomplishing and completing as a county government. As you'll see here for this community, it looks like they haven't really completed this section of their plan. However, they're able to quickly evaluate that and see their current state. They can see the dollars and resources that they're allocating towards specific areas of their plan, even down to specific KPIs, right? They're able to track that over time. The goal is for you to be able to have all this information, bring your organization along, and really hold everyone accountable here. And that's actually going to segue us into making collaboration easy. Now, I used the phrase earlier, how can you really make the target wide for your team to be able to provide their input and key requests for your budget? Now that there's an understanding of what the vision and the plan is for the budget, how are you going to continue to bring along your organization? From speaking with teams all across the state here, I often hear time and time again about frustrations that arise because sometimes it can feel like pulling teeth to really get budget input back from departments or internal stakeholders. And then when you do, maybe there's missing information. Maybe the requests aren't really aligned with what you're hoping for, your key initiatives. So the goal here is to take budgeting beyond your ERP. Really having the ability to gather customized information is key to time savings during budget development, and also getting rid of outdated methods of collecting data by maybe leveraging more digitized forms and technology for your requests, being able to better track that, having the ability to include all the information you need to effectively evaluate budget justifications all goes into a more hassle-free process and saving time at the end of the day. Now, I know this never happens to anyone here on this call, but when I was at the county, collaborating with my team internally was definitely just not a strength of our office. Department heads would miss budget deadlines we would set for them. They would also unknowingly withhold critical budget information with their requests. I personally remember having to work weekends and late nights trying to gather all the information I needed just to help kind of form the budget. A ton of time went into that. So having the ability to really simplify that, automate reminders, being able to hold everyone accountable, keep everyone on track during the process is absolutely important. You have a multitude of other tasks to accomplish during the season. You don't have time to get bogged down with the small details of it all. So really by this point, you should have built your processes to enable you to let department heads really own their portion of the budget and even their budget book side of things. Being able to empower your departments and internal stakeholders effectively to be responsible for their budget will ultimately reduce headaches for you and your staff. But again, this all starts with your vision and then ultimately with the goal of making collaboration easy this budget cycle. But just to add some context around this, one of the ways that we actually assist county governments in doing that is we've actually developed a budget resource where folks can have access to their portion of the budget They're able to see the breakdown of their budget, what's making up all of these values here. But then they're also able to quickly share it, make it collaborative with their departments, and really hold their departments accountable for submitting their budget requests, their deadlines, and gathering all the information that you need in one place, as opposed to really having to work through more manual-based processes and take time of developing any type of budget workbooks, anything like that. This right here, this is ClearGov's operational budgeting tool. While counties use different resources for this section of it, just to show you how what we mean by making it easy internally is in a tool like this, you'll actually have one place to all of your historical budget detail, have access to all of your departments, all of their budget. And then as you start breaking this down, it should be easy for you and your staff to be able to evaluate the different sections of the budget. What does that look like overall? Even down to showcasing interactive charts and graphs where you can track the data set of, okay, what are your budget to actuals year over year? What does that look like for the future? How are you forecasting information? And then ultimately on the collaboration aspect, right? As opposed to having to get down to the weeds of creating budget packets, anything like that, we want your life to be more efficient, a little bit more effective, and inviting folks to be able to work on their portion of the budget to where with the click of a button, you're able to come in and actually assign specific departments their portion of the budget and assign these sections all across your team. So again, the goal is to make collaboration easy, to be able to gather that key critical information that you need all in one place and really make those informed business decisions along the way. Which actually kind of leads us into making scenario planning easy here. And really, as you evaluate the positives and the areas of improvement for your specific budget process last year, the question is, how simplified was your scenario planning process? And not only from a creation standpoint, but even down to communicating scenarios across the team and even beyond that. A lot of counties I work with across the state are often bogged down during union negotiations and CIP development for using tools and resources that are quite frankly just over 30 years old. So as we discuss a hassle-free budget process, it's important to understand sometimes it's not your process itself that might even always need to be revamped, but the tools to get you there can be very cumbersome in our modern world. So when discussing maybe personnel budgeting, capital budgeting type of scenarios, we absolutely find it critical to really plan for the future through multi-year budget planning. But as discussed, it's important to evaluate what methods you're using to actually be able to project these scenarios on the fly, be sure you have all the critical information that you need in real time. And utilizing data visualization, we also believe can help improve the communication aspect as you really make collaboration easy across your organization. But the question is, are you still losing time when you're kind of worrying about formulas breaking or having to manually adjust for scenarios you're constructing? Are you able to build out best case, worst case scenarios on the fly, or is it taking weeks to 2 weeks, right? All of that goes into a more hassle-free process. Scenario planning has to be easy this budget season. But just to kind of shed some light around what folks are doing here as well, with different tools and resources, right? The goal is for you to have one place, whether you're building out a personnel plan, a CIP plan, you should be able to access all the information in one resource to where you can quickly see the impacts of different scenarios that you're building, where are your dollars going, being able to quickly access all that key critical information and doing so effectively, right? That's the goal to being more hassle-free. And what that does is it's going to empower you to be able to come in, build out those multi-year scenarios where you can compare the values over time. What are your decisions today? How's that going to impact tomorrow, right? And then as you go through negotiations, as you build out best case, worst case scenarios, you should quickly have access to that key critical information of what's making up your different department budgets here. What about funds, right? How much is going towards your personnel costs, your capital costs? And then start to break it down, even down to the employee level, right? What if you want to make COLA adjustments? Are you going to break your spreadsheet at the same time? Is there going to be kind of potential room for errors? We want to mitigate anything like that. So having resources to where you can quickly come in here, make any type of one-time adjustments, adjust those additional pays, benefits, even plan for new positions as you start to scale and grow as a county, right? having that visualization and that data in real time to see the impact and doing so effectively is all part of that more hassle-free budget process as you're going into budget season here this year. And that's actually going to lead us into presenting to engage. While building your budget is only one aspect of the process, after you and your team have done the work, you want to be able to display your budget and really tell your narrative here. By this point, you would have built your budget to your vision, to your strategic plan. You would have made collaboration easy internally. And you've also developed a top-notch budget by evaluating your best case, worst case scenarios in an efficient and effective way. So now you want to invite your county community along and really present the budget in a way that makes sense for the everyday resident. Local government is often bogged down by residents who don't understand the full picture and might take things out of context of where your budget dollars are going. I'm sure everyone can think of a few folks in their community that might often question where the dollars are going. And it's not that us as counties have anything to hide, but it's being able to easily present those values of what we're doing as a county. A lot of times that can take a lot of time. And the reality is that most governments, most counties really are doing a lot of work with the little that they're given in this day and age. So you want to be able to mitigate potential distrust and budget questions by effectively communicating the work that your team has put forth and really finalizing the budget detail. We've actually found that a lack of resident trust really tends to undermine the administration's ability to make progress and waste valuable time and resources. In fact, the data set that we found highlights that only 7% of people actually believe local governments effectively share their data, really highlighting a significant modernization challenge. I mean, the reality is that we live in a modern world. As counties, we should think about making our budget all that much more accessible, ADA optimized for residents, use graphs, narratives to really be able to tell your budget, your financial story, and leverage award-winning best practices to show that your county is the thought leader across the state. So how can we best represent our county in this modern world in an efficient way? That's the question there. But just to show you what one county here in Florida is doing, they're actually using our digital budget book tool to really save time in being able to mitigate potential distrust, different questions that might arise that might bog down time, but also do so in an effective and efficient way. They're using what we call our digital budget book tool to where once the team's built out their budget, all this information that you're seeing here is going to be automated. So it's going to automate charts, graphs, line item detail, narrative. They're able to tell their financial story and really drive their narrative in a way that makes sense to the everyday resident in the county here. They can track, what's happening throughout time as they work to build out their budget. Folks throughout the county have access to kind of break this down in different formats that are easy to comprehend and really consume, even down to specific reports. Palm Beach County has complete control of the information that they're really displaying. And they're also to really push transparency and really highlight how easy this information and it is and accessible it is for their county community and their residents that they serve here. But this is one example of how a county here in Florida is doing that, really driving and telling their financial story in a way that makes sense. But I just actually want to highlight one other county here in Florida who this whole idea of really driving and collaborating and making this whole process a lot more simplified, how it's really impacted them. They've actually mentioned, and this is Sumter County, that the digital budget book is so much easier than the Word document that took us about 5 weeks to do with 6 different people. So now we just go in, we edit it, we cross-check each other, and boom. We save so much in staff time just in transferring. Now, with this, right, they kind of took a step outside of the box and said, how can we be more efficient? How can we save staff time? How can we be more hassle-free? And that's exactly what we're talking about today. And it's actually where we're going to land here today. When we talk about leveraging technology, as I hinted earlier, every county uses various tools to help achieve similar budget processes. However, the question is, how effective are your resources enabling you to be? In my experience with county government and from speaking with several communities across the state here, it's interesting to find that the resources necessary for a more hassle-free budget process are often overlooked or often even deemed as non-critical. However, I'm sure we would all agree on this call that the budget is the foundation of the county. So leveraging technology and really evaluating your process can absolutely save you time this budget season. I just want to leave you with this here. There's a reason why new phones, new vehicles, and new appliances are released all the time. In this modern world, we want to work smarter, right? Not harder. Automation is the key. If we make our day-to-day lives easier with new technologies, why should we leave our budget processes to suffer at the end of the day? At this time, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined on the webinar as we discuss just tips for a more hassle-free budget process. Actually would like to meet you in person. If you are going to be attending any of these upcoming events, we got National GFOA happening here this upcoming week. I'll be there in person. ClearGov will have a large booth in the center of the exhibit hall that's going to go up to the ceiling. Feel free to stop by, ask for Nathaniel. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your budget process and see where there are areas that we can help kind of streamline, make it more effective, more efficient, and save you time at the end of the day. Also, too, we're going to be there at the FAC annual conference towards the end of the month. So please, please, please stop by and say hello. But at this time, I'm going to turn it back over and also leave some room if anyone has any questions that they would like to be addressed.
Nathaniel, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. That looks like an incredibly powerful tool. And I don't see any, there is one question in the chat.
Oh, yes, NACO annual conference. Yes, we will be there. My team will be at the NACO annual conference. I will not be there, but we'll love to connect with you there in person.
So you talked about, and I think this is, I'm going to brag on my own county, Leon County here, because they do a really excellent job of tying their strategic plan, their vision to their budgeting process. And they do periodic reports and updates to the community on how they're achieving, where they are on the different goals. So what about if you go into a community and they don't have that? They don't have that tie. They just have a traditional budgeting process, as you said, and it might be, sort of the old fashioned incremental budgeting. They don't really have a vision. They know what something cost last year. They had 2% and so on. So what happens in the setup with ClearGov in a local government that doesn't have that?
Yeah, as it relates to, from a ClearGov perspective, totally understand not all counties might have that, right? And that's really where we kind of help assist. So there's two different approaches. If that is the goal for the county, right, to really get ahead of that, really be able to share their vision and where the plan is, where they want to go, we want to enable them and empower them to, quite frankly, be able to come in, quickly build that out. We have templates to help you do that and assist along the way. But for counties that maybe are just trying to be just more effective in just the budget process in general, we'll absolutely come alongside them. And everything that we have to offer is a la carte basis. So with ClearGov, we want to help streamline and modernize your process based on your needs. So every county is different, every community is different, but we'll work alongside you with what are some of your key goals and priorities, what that is for your county.
Once you have established the work with the county, what support do you provide, if any, and who controls the data at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Eric. So the way we work with our governments here, I actually hang my hat on with pride around this, is over the past couple of years, ClearGov has actually won awards for our client success and support. So when we come alongside you, we are a direct partner of yours, and we want to help you along the way, not just from when you get started with ClearGov, but for your life with ClearGov. In fact, 75% of the employees that work at ClearGov come directly from local government. So we have former Florida County employees working at ClearGov, Florida City government employees working at ClearGov. But we work alongside you along the way, provide training, provide support. As it relates to data, our approach is that we want you to have complete control over your data. So what's nice is when you work with ClearGov, we'll map out, mirror all of your chart of accounts, your Florida State chart of accounts as well, make sure that it's all aligned in your solutions and your tools. And then as you go along the way for any updates, anything like that, we take a white glove approach to where we're able to do updates for you whenever you want. Our team does the heavy lift for y'all, but then also too, you have complete control. So you can do self-service import, update data, and really have a complete control overall, like when you work with ClearGov.
And so what has been your experience with, just in terms of return on investment? So you have to make an upfront investment with ClearGov for this product. And my sense is that for a county like Palm Beach, and I saw your slide, they have $2 billion in general revenue, which is amazing. And so it probably, I would assume it pays for itself in terms of, because everything is automated. You have less staff time running around trying to put all these budgets together. But for a smaller county, and we got counties that have populations of 8,000, but they have, they have budgeting requirements and those kind of needs. How would you work with a very small county that's resource constrained on something like this? Is it scalable? Does it go something a little bit smaller?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, great question, Eric. Coming from county government myself, that's actually what really led me to ClearGov and what I really loved about their model. The way we work with county governments is all based on the current state of your county. So if you are a smaller county here in Florida that quite frankly is just saying, hey, I'm a team of one, I can't even get up to breathe sometimes just because I'm so bogged down in the time it takes to pull this together. We'll actually work with you to where your investment, what you're having to do, it's not going to be the same as a Palm Beach, right? You have different needs, you have unique needs. And that's where ClearGov does really well. From our foundation, as I mentioned at the beginning, Chris, our CEO, he walked into a small town in Massachusetts and wanted to make their process a lot more transparent, a lot more efficient. And that's really where ClearGov started. We work with small to mid-sized everyday local governments. We've scaled up from there. So just because you are a team of one, don't let that make you nervous from wanting to modernize and streamline your process. We've actually found a lot of success stories in the sense to where you're not having to hire that additional team member just to help you alleviate the load and the pressure, right? You're able to pull on something like ClearGov, make your process more efficient. And then what I think is most important, not have to work on weekends or late evenings anymore as well.
Yeah, budget officers tend to do that.
Just a little.
Yeah. My last questions, or a couple here, might be, at fact, we have a report that we produce called Where the Money Comes From and Where the Money Gets Spent. And we did that in response to criticism from the state legislature on taxes and at the county level. So it's very clear this is where the revenue comes from for counties, and this is kind of what we spend on. In Florida, counties spend a almost disproportionate amount of their budget on public safety. So they have to fund the sheriff's budget. And that's hard to communicate to the community when they are putting their budget together. And perhaps they may have to raise the millage rate because the sheriff is asking for an increase in equipment, a helicopter, and that sort of stuff. How would ClearGov approach that to make sure that the community understands that this is the county budget, but we're having to fund the public safety component of it that they really don't have much control over? Do you understand my question there? It's just that what your product has is very, what I would call transparency plus, which is awesome. But there's that kind of odd component that, in working with the sheriff's office to make sure that people can see that. That's where a bunch of the tax money is going toward.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point that you brought up. What's nice and kind of the structure and the way we've intended it to be, as I kind of mentioned earlier, right? We want you to have complete control and be able to really drive your narrative and financial story in a way that makes sense. And I think through that question, Eric, you actually hit on a great reason for why ClearGov even exists, right? Being able to effectively differentiate those costs and really showcase to the taxpayers, hey, this is why we're having to make increases here, make cuts here. These are where your dollars are being spent. With a tool like ClearGov, it's completely customizable to be able to actually share and tell your financial story. So in your example here, if you want to come in and build out nice interactive reports just to highlight where your tax dollars are going and the reasonings behind that, right? It's absolutely customizable for each specific county. Every county is different. Every county has their own financial story that they're trying to tell. But I think the key thing behind this is to be able to do that efficiently, a more streamlined, because at the end of the day, you're building out your budget and then you're on to the next thing, right? Who has time to get into the weeds and try to tell that story on their own? We want to streamline that process for you through automated charts, graphs, KPIs, to really showcase what your county's doing overall.
Right. My last question is, we started out your presentation with your CEO, Chris, going to a town hall meeting and not being able to understand the budget very well. And you've built out this wonderful platform. Do you have a sense for what the community feedback is in those counties that you work in, that what's the public response been in terms of just the budgeting process?
Yeah, great question too. So it's actually very interesting. So since I've been working on this side of it, and I like to mention it earlier, I think as a county, we all have those folks that come to our budget meetings and they have a few things to say at those meetings, to be frank. But what's been pretty incredible, and when we talk about changing and making the shift from counties being reactive to being proactive, what's been incredible to see is that using our tools, counties have been able to actually invite folks to be more collaborative with the process, right? We actually invite them, and we have different projects that we can break down. And there's platforms on, like, through ClearGov, to where residents can ask questions, they can engage, they can see the dollars. We even have folks pulling in some of our tools like this, and they'll display this at their workshops, at their annual meetings, even at their just regular board and commission meetings, and say, hey, this is what we're working on, this is where the dollars are going, and also these are the projects of what we're doing. So what's been incredible to see is that not only is it saving time internally, but externally, the involvement and the engagement from the community has been really high, since counties are quickly able to really tell their story in just a way that your average Joe and average resident would just quickly be able to adopt and understand.
Yeah, I mean, that returning person at the county commission meeting that's there every time may not like where the expenditures are going, but they can't say that it's not clear. And I think this is a really great product. So, Nathaniel, I don't see any questions left in the chat. Looking forward to working with you guys, and looking forward to see you at our annual conference later this month.
Absolutely. We appreciate back as an organization, appreciate you facilitating today, Eric, as well. And thank you to everyone again for joining on the call. If you will be at these upcoming conferences, including the National Association of Counties Conference, we will have a team there. We'd love to learn about your process and say hello.
All right, Nathaniel, Stephanie, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.